YouTube Oziko in the Goat House is back. And we got a big one for you guys today. Trade deadline candidates. I got 26 of them. For each one, we're gonna go over a lot, but mainly landing spots for those players and my actual prediction. Of course, nowhere near all these players will actually be traded. We're going to break it all down, keeping this as realistic as possible. Some people are putting out different scenarios that are not realistic. We're going to talk about some big-name players, too, that people think will be traded, but it's very unlikely they won't. But we'll talk about the landing spots if they were to be traded. Trade deadline is November 2nd, which is upcoming Tuesday, a few days away. Soon as that week hits, these trades start to unfold because teams want to save space. If they trade for them now, they cost more money because it's a week of salary, an extra week. So quite a bit will go down, I think, leading up to Monday and Tuesday. So we'll have you covered with live updates on our Twitter. Link down below. Check that out. Give us a follow. Constant updates there. Like, subscribe, turn notifications on. We got full trade deadline coverage. We got full NFL coverage, weekly picks, power rankings, and a lot more. Here's our Twitter, kind of give you guys a heads up. This was coming. A lot of updates here and more to come for sure. There's going to be constant updates, constant rumors coming out there. So let's start with Deshaun Watson. And for Deshaun Watson, let's make this quick. We talked about Deshaun Watson enough here. 3 1s, 2 2s the value of remaining salary if traded for deadline week, which I think all these guys were expecting if they are traded. It's deadline week, $5.85 million. So not everybody could afford that. That's something people need to keep in mind. People throw out random scenarios and they don't keep the cap space in mind. It's like not everybody can afford everybody. It's not how it works. Landing spots, we definitely removed some. The Panthers are out. They were out as of this past Tuesday. Dolphins, Eagles, will he play for the Eagles? We haven't heard anything about Washington, but Fitzpatrick's injury is kind of a setback. Who knows? Maybe. I really don't think so. My prediction is tough. It's either Miami or no trade. I still feel like Miami's involved. I feel like more teams are going to be involved in the offseason that Watson may be interested in. So Miami may feel like they have to do it. They have to do it now, if they want to. And it's pretty clear the way Flores is talking. He's trying to kind of hide it. It's pretty clear that they are in on Watson. They do want him. But I think no trade. I think the Dolphins will be hesitant to go full price what Texans want, and I think the Texans will need that. Otherwise, we might as well wait. If it's still Miami is the only team, and then we'll make a deal. But who knows? We got nothing to lose here. More teams will probably be on the table. Watson will probably be interested in more teams. So I think they wait, but it very well could end up being the Dolphins. There are credible people out there that really think the trade's going to happen. So it is a little tricky. I just think it makes sense for both teams, really, the Dolphins and the Texans, to wait. The Dolphins may not get him, though, if they wait, but they need so many other things right now. Can they afford to give rid of more picks? Sure, they'll be a lot better at Watson. My prediction is going to be the Texans. It's mainly on them that they want to wait. Talking about another Texan, Brandon Cooks, who we talked about a while back that could be on his way out. Texans are sellers, big-time sellers. And, they're looking to deal pretty much anybody for the right price for the most part here. Only a $1.38 million remaining salary, so pretty affordable for almost everybody. There's some teams that they're actually under that. They're very tight on the cap, so it is tough. But, I think, third round pick, it's tricky. Even though he's cheap this year, next year he's going to have a $12.5 million around there. I believe it's 12.5. Cap hit next year. So some teams may be turned off by that. I think Brandon Cooks is worth it. I think he's a heck of a player, but teams keep letting him go, like moving on from him. So maybe the league doesn't view him as that highly. I think there's got to be some teams out there. I throw the Saints in there. Return of the Saints. It has been reported that they're looking for a receiver, but they're gonna have to. They bring in Mark Ingram. They don't take too much of a cap hit there, but they're going to be in that $1 million range, a little bit under that probably. They restructured a lot of contracts, right? So maybe they find another one to restructure. I heard they could be moving on from some small players, Granderson, B.J. Williams. They could be trading them, small players, to try to clear space here. So the Saints definitely can make it work. They're looking for this type of receiver. I would love him on the Chargers. I think we talked about that in the past. I would love him on the Chargers, exactly what they need. They have the cap space for the future. Again, most people have the cap space for this year, but for next year, the Chargers have plenty of space. Mike Williams is going to be a free agent. The Packers could use another guy. 49ers where are they at? Are they buyers or sellers? They definitely could use a Cooks-type player. Watch football team, Curtis Samuel hasn't worked out because of the injury. They could use another guy. And I've been preaching that the Chiefs actually need another receiver. It's pretty much game plan for Kelsey and game plan for Tyreek Hill. So they need somebody else out there. They, trying Josh Gordon out. We'll see. But they're a little thin on the cap space. I'm predicting no trade. This is a tough one. I really like the Chargers for them. The Saints will probably show interest. Can they clear that space? I'm sure they can, but things need to happen. I'm mainly looking at those teams. The Chargers and the Saints is mainly what I'm looking at here. I'm saying no trade, though. The Texans still like him. He's unhappy about the Ingram trade, so maybe he wants to be out, perhaps. I don't know. Maybe he's been traded too much, so I don't know. It's tough to say if somebody would give up a third. I would, depending on the team. If I'm the Chargers, I definitely would. Will somebody give that up because he has the $12.5 million salary next year? Maybe not. The Texans aren't going to let him go for less than that. They may not even let him go for that third. They may need a second. So I think things and stuff need to happen here. So that's why it's a little tricky, but it very well could happen. It's why he's on this list. Well, not every guy on this list. There's some guys we're going to talk about that I dislike when people kind of put them out there. But again, I really like the Chargers for Brandon Cooks, but then we got Deshaun Jackson, who I'm actually predicting the Chargers to trade for. I haven't heard anything about them looking for a receiver. It's just based off me thinking they should look for a speed receiver. And then Brandon Cooks might with the Texans. Again, will they be able to reach that deal? Will they be able to reach a deal here? So maybe a little tricky. Let's take that next step down, that cheaper option, that easier option, Deshaun Jackson. So I'm predicting him to Deshaun Jackson, that is, to the Chargers. So staying in L.A. as well. Yesterday it was announced that Jackson and the Rams have agreed to seek a trade. He's been playing less and less. He'll be inactive this week. And he looked good when they played him. Buccaneers game, 32% snaps. That's the most of the season for him. He looked real good in that game. So, they're designing so many plays for Cooper Kupp. So, it could be understood why some of those guys could be frustrated. Why it's only Deshaun Jackson. I don't think the value is too high. Probably normally higher than a seventh. He is up there in age. He still could play, but he has injury concern. $1.52 million remaining salary. There's probably better players with less salary, but that they agreed to seek a trade. It's almost like we're gonna trade him no matter what. So the value definitely drops. Rams lose leverage. They're okay with it. I already talked about it, and you already see my prediction. The Chargers. I do like the Saints. I keep bringing up the Saints. The Saints will probably end up with the receiver. It's just really tricky to figure out which one here, and will other teams beat them for them? They do have to clear some space, so things need to happen again. People bringing up the Lions, sending them the Lions there. They probably look for a contender. Maybe they help them out a little bit. So most of these teams are contenders, playoff contenders at least. San Francisco, Indianapolis, I view as they still could be playoff contenders. Colts are dead last in cap space, so it might be tough for them to do some things. But I would like Jackson there. It depends on the health of T.Y. Hilton or Paris Campbell went down. It's right now, it feels like Pittman's got to carry a bit. But again, T.Y. Hilton's going to be coming back, so that's an interesting team too. I look at the Chargers and the Saints. I'd probably throw this, a kind of a move the Packers probably be willing to make. Maybe I'd throw them there next. Would the Rams trade them in division to 49ers? I don't think they would mind with this deal. I look at the Saints and the Chargers. I'm predicting the Chargers. They desperately need speed at receiver. I haven't heard anybody else really think that. That's kind of just my take. I'm sure people think that. But I haven't heard that they're looking for a receiver. The Chargers are going to pop up in this video a lot in terms of landing spots because they have a lot of cap space. They can win now. They have future cap space. They should be willing to do this. They have some needs at speed, speed receiver. And we're going to talk about the other positions as well. So Deshaun Jackson will be traded. This is one I really think he will be traded. Who knows? It could be to a team that I don't have listed. Lions, Jags. I can't rule that out. I can't rule that out for sure. I look at the Chargers, the Saints at the top, next couple teams there. My prediction's the Chargers. Darius Slayton popped up. Teams calling the Giants about Darius Slayton. Look at that cheap remaining salary, $472K. Also next year, a cheaper salary. He's going to be looking for a contract extension, maybe before last year, even though he's under contract. Tough to figure out the value here. He's been looking pretty solid, especially for where he was drafted. Our team's fully sold on him? What are we going to get from him? It's tough to figure out the value. I look at a 4th-round pick, but because he's so cheap and he's a talented young player, I could see the third, but then you probably got to give him an extension. And it's still, I don't know. it's proven that he's way better than we expected. Everyone expected, but is he a proven player fully? So it's really tricky to figure out the value. I look at the similar teams, and then we can throw teams like the Lions who are looking for a receiver of the future makes sense. The Jaguars we threw back in here. Teams that aren't really win now mode for like guys like a veteran like Deshaun Jackson. In the win now guys could take a guy like Slayton, of course, but it makes a little more sense that these teams are in on a guy like this. I think no trade. I think the Giants like him a lot. I know they have a load of receivers. That's why it's tricky. Like, you're going to be paying Galladay for a long time. Kadarius Toney looks like they hit on Kadarius Toney, I tell you that. And they have other guys as well, So can they move on from Slayton? Because will they be able to extend him with the money they're paying Galladay? I guess that falls on if he needs an extension before next year. I guess that'll fall on that. If he does, if he's going to demand an extension, the Giants probably know. Gettleman probably knows. If he's going to need that extension before next year, which he's under contract, but then they probably trade him to get something out of him. Otherwise, if they're like, hey, if we got to trade him before his contract's up, we might as well wait the next deadline or maybe this offseason. And the Giants do value him pretty highly, and they value having several receivers out there. On top of that, there's a bunch of receivers that are hurt for them. Galladay, Tony's been hurt, Shepard. So I think they value him. I think they're hesitant to trade these players they like. That's just my take on Gettleman and the Giants. So I don't think a trade. There's definitely teams calling, that's a fact, and there's definitely teams interested. And they'd be willing to trade for him. So it's an interesting player here to look out for. Devontae Parker, we talked about him in a past trade deadline video. $4.30 million remaining salary. It's tough to figure out, the value because he has future years on his contract with some pretty beefy cap hits, to be honest. So fifth, I think he's more talented than a fifth, but it's probably sitting around there because of that. And that's what makes everything tricky. So I look at the teams that need a receiver and the teams that also have the cap space now and for the future. I say that lightly with a team like Green Bay. They don't really have it for the future, but I throw them in there because they're not afraid to go all out, Super Bowl or bust this year, it feels like. But yeah, $4.30 million is pretty pricey actually for the rest of this year. And so again, some pretty big cap hits, double-digit million cap hits. I don't know if that made any sense what I just said, but you get what I'm saying. For the future years. So I'm predicting no trade because his value drops because of that. And the Dolphins, I don't think, want to give him away for less than his value. I don't think teams want his future contract for what they want to value him at. It's possible. It's why he's one of the guys on here. But I just don't see it. I just don't see it because of the reasons I just explained. Too much has to happen. Too much has to be okay with the other team, with the Dolphins agreeing to drop his value down. It might feel like if this trade happens, I'd say that it would be maybe less than what they have that value up. The Dolphins just give him away, just to dump him. I don't think they want to do that. I don't know. So I say no trade here. Andy Isabella, interesting one. Teams calling about him, and the Cardinals definitely open to trading Andy Isabella, who hasn't really worked out. A lot of people liked him a lot coming out of college there, and he was kind of hyped up a little bit. It hasn't lived up to that. Value can't be much. 7th round pick, it's got to be around there. We see that we're talking about a lot of receivers. We're going to talk about more. The same teams that may need a receiver probably can make a longer list, honestly, with this one because he's a cheap $508K remaining salary. It's going to be a cheap cost in terms of the trade. I actually, originally for my prediction, I originally had the Detroit Lions. They need a receiver. They're making calls on them. On some, we don't know about Isabella. They're not a win now team, so they want guys for the future. That kind of makes sense there. They got a bunch of guys like this, though. All of a sudden, it hit me. I really like the Jaguars. And I throw the Saints. I keep talking about the Saints because I don't have the Saints getting any of these guys, but at the same time, I feel like they're going to get somebody, And they got to make some moves still, which that definitely can be done. But they got they're looking for a guy that's for sure. They got the maybe guys, maybe make an impact. They got those guys. They want to go get a guy that, the Saints that for sure makes that impact, but, they definitely need a receiver, so they can be in on that. I'm really looking at the Saints, the Jaguars, the Lions. End up going with the Jaguars. It's just a feeling. Remember, I actually had Lions trading for Andy Isabella. I switched it to the Jaguars. DJ Chark is out, and he's going to be a free agent. There's also a big problem with separation from the Jags. Like, they got these guys that can ball. Don't get me wrong. They got Marvin Jones can play, can track the ball, he can high point the ball. Shenault is ridiculous after the catch. Not a lot of separation out there, though. Agnew's kind of the utility guy, hybrid guy. Not a lot of separation. Isabella, I think, fits that. They're getting those types of guys that kind of fit college offenses. The question is, they fit the NFL offenses. To me, this is kind of an Urban Meyer type of guy here. And they need a guy that can get separation. Jags are off a win and a bye. They could be a little sneaky. This offense I think it's going to be better than what even this year, what people kind of where their expectations are at. I think it can be. Need somebody that can separate. I guess Isabella's unproven in a lot of those categories. I think he could separate. It's more of understanding coverages, reading coverages, how to change your routes within that. I think it should be more of a guy you scheme things up for, because he'll get that separation. What's a straight up, just schemed up play. I can see the Jaguars working him in. So I just kind of a feeling I got. Again, only thing I haven't heard anything on where he's going. We've heard that he is a legit trade candidate. They're willing to trade him, Cardinals that is, and teams are definitely calling. Cheap cost, salary, and value. Let's talk about some receivers, big name receivers that people are throwing out there. I see like CBS trade scenarios. I see people on Twitter. I don't know if they're credible, but throwing them out. Guys like these next couple guys out, some big name guys we're going to talk about. Start Allen Robinson. Remaining salary, a whopping $9.93 million. That is a lot. There is not that many teams that could afford that. And that's why I only have 3 teams listed here, because teams that I could see liking Allen Robinson, having the cap space to pay him now, having the cap space to extend him in the future. I've seen scenarios with the Ravens on here. The Ravens are nowhere near being able to afford him. Sometimes teams will help the team pay the salary. The Bears cannot do that. They have $3 million or so, and they would be able to pay like $1.5 million maybe maximum. It's just not going to happen. The Chargers, again, they could do it. I think it's too similar to Mike Williams. They like Mike Williams. Washington football team, I think they're too worried about the future right now. Back to Jacksonville, they can use that receiver. Probably not the solid receiver they're looking for. They already have that Marvin Jones type. They have DJ Chark decision to make. So I'm the more I'm talking, the more I already said it was highly unlikely, but I'm realizing it's highly unlikely. It's just too expensive for teams. And where's the value at? The Bears will want a second round pick. Our team's going to do that for expensive. We have to expiring contract. We have to extend him. So I just don't see it happening. But he's being brought up, and he's being brought up to teams that it just won't happen to. Unless the team trades a bunch of players away. I just don't see it with only a couple days left. Talk about another one, Odell Beckham Jr. Every single year, every offseason, every trade deadline, Odell Beckham is brought up. He's a high-profile, high-name, big-time player. So he's brought up. Got an $8.75 million remaining salary. It is the same situation as Allen Robinson. I think he has less value, but it's a different situation because he has multiple years remaining on his contract. They're pretty big cap hits, keep in mind. We don't really know where his talent level is at after. I still believe he's talented, but after the injuries, doesn't really look the same so far, even though he's in really good shape, I think. I think it's a highly unlikely trade for multiple reasons because teams are unsure. It's a question about how his future is, especially with those big cap hits in the future. I don't think the Browns want to trade him on top of it. So people including Odell Beckham in trade scenarios, I don't know. I don't think the Browns want to do it. I don't think the other teams want to do it. They're not going to be able to match on value. He's pricey for this year. A lot of teams are very low on cap because what happened this offseason, the cap dropping, it's a mess out there. Sure, cap can be cleared. I just don't see it. He's brought up a ton, and that's just how it is. So I had to talk about him on here. And another one, Michael Thomas, that actually Albert Breer brought up that teams told him this is a guy to watch for. Like, teams are actually calling a little bit. They're fishing around a little bit. So that's interesting. I just don't see a trade happening. The good part here, it's because of a restructure from the Saints, $555K remaining salary, but the future cap hits are very large, very large. And we've seen his talent, though. Like, it's worth, even though they're pretty freaking large, 20+ million, he's worth it if he's on the field, because we see how at any given time he can be the best receiver in football. It's just been a little bit since we've seen him. Value's tricky. I think talent-wise, he's worth more than just the first. We haven't seen him in a bit. He's currently injured. He has some pretty beefy cap hits in the future. If he were to be traded, again, I don't think he will. Saints might maybe, because there's a little bit of unhappy maybe. I don't think too much. There was a little bit of beef going on Michael Thomas wasn't happy that they didn't tell him to get surgery earlier. The whole situation, Sean Payton said I don't know the situation. It's just, earlier in the season, it just felt like they weren't too happy about the situation, I guess. It doesn't really necessarily mean they want him out. He wants out. I think that's blown up a little too much. I only put one landing spot. Jaguars. Happens to be Urban Meyer, who comes from Ohio State. Michael Thomas was there at Ohio State when he was there. I think he's too similar to Keenan Allen, where the Chargers wouldn't want him. Possibly, the Jags are the only team I could see doing it. I think it's highly unlikely, even though, again, it was brought up that team sources said that's kind of a big name to watch out for. I just don't see it. And it's mainly one, I don't think the Saints actually want to trade him. Two, it's kind of similar to Odell. Two, I don't think teams want his future cap hits, especially because he's injured and we haven't seen him really fully healthy in a while. And then how are you going to match up on a value, from those two sides? I just don't see it, So we had to talk about these big names, even though I'm not expecting it to go anywhere whatsoever. Evan Ingram, another Giants player, remaining salary 3.34. There's actually some teams that need a tight end pretty badly right now. I think that helps his value. Has he played to that talent level 4th-round pick? I don't think so. I think that's where his value's at, though. Teams need tight ends. Do the Giants want to get rid of him? Teams have called about Evan Ingram. They're not trying to push him out. The Bills with Dawson Knox injury, and they don't really have much of a receiving threat at the position after Dawson Knox, so that's a little scary. The Packers, Robert Tonyan just went down. Do they view Ingram and Tonyan like similar style tight end, though? That's kind of the question there, but they definitely need help. They need help there, so they might just get any tight end help they want. Titans could use another one. The Saints, but it's going to be tough for them to afford this, but they definitely could use a receiving tight end type help. 49ers actually Kittle injury, but to pair with Kittle, because they don't really have the best receivers as well. And then Jacksonville, always could use a better tight end. I think Evan Ingram would fit. I think no trade. I think the Giants value him. Another guy that always comes up in terms of the trade deadline, off-season trades, and teams view his upside pretty high. They want him, but the Giants like him. He played a bit last week. They like pairing him with Kyle Rudolph. If they get rid of him, they're kind of missing that move tight end that they like. That receiving tight end. They're missing that, and they have receiver injuries as well that can't really fill that. I know it's not exactly the same, but it's kind of that big move tight end, the big slot tight end. So I guess the receiver kind of can fill that role. Minus the big part. I just don't see it could happen because teams are calling. It could happen. I think they got to be blown away. Maybe nobody's going to offer a 3rd-round pick, but if they offer that, maybe the Giants take that. Then maybe they're willing to accept a 4th because he's an upcoming free agent. But I don't know. I think the Giants like him too much, so I don't really see it happening there. But it's definitely interesting. Another one that teams are calling about: Hayden Hurst. 1.10 remaining salary, not too much. I think around the same value. Teams looking for that inline tight end here. Some similar teams would throw more team. The Vikings could be looking for more of an inline guy, maybe missing Kyle Rudolph a little bit. I just don't see a trade. I think people don't realize that Kyle Pitts and Hayden Hurst aren't really the same position technically. So I don't think the Falcons value, well, obviously both of them very highly. I really don't think they want to move on from Hayden Hurst. So I don't think a trade's happening there. He's been brought up. Teams are calling. So it's possible. I just don't see it happening. Andre Dillard, remaining salary is not much, $899K there. The value is what's tricky. I see other people putting like a 6th-round value on him. I'm thinking around a 3rd or 4th here. Tackles aren't young upside tackles with experience aren't available really ever. Has he played to 3rd-round value? No, he's not. He can get there. Got to think about upside. But these guys are never available. The Eagles really don't want to trade Andre Dillard. It's a possibility they can. They're not really loving the idea of trading Andre Dillard. Unless it's the right value. They're not. Or I shouldn't say it that way. They're not trying to push him out, I guess is what I should say. I look at the Steelers need an offensive lineman. The Ravens, they're depleted over there. The Panthers need one pretty bad. The Dolphins could use one, but do they save picks for Watson trade? The Bears could definitely use one. Do they want to trade anyway? More picks though. Pretty valuable picks. I'm predicting the Ravens. I'm really thinking the Steelers. The Steelers missing some picks in those dates to the mid rounds here, so it's a little tricky. I predict the Ravens, and for the Eagles, let them go. They're gonna have to get the right price here. So I really don't think they're gonna trade him for a 5th or lower. I really don't. I guess a 5th wouldn't shock me completely. I just don't see it. I've seen people, I guess credible people, somewhat kind of predicting though, say around 6th round. I think that to me that's mind blowing stuff. Yes, he needs to be better. The Ravens are pretty desperate right now. They can put Dillard at left tackle, move Villanueva back to right tackle. They're beat up. What they can't have happen is Lamar Jackson if Lamar Jackson's getting sacked, you got a problem because that guy avoids everyone. I don't know. I think the Ravens will be in. I think the Steelers will be in. I heard the Browns, but I think the Browns like what they got. So Panthers are calling around about offensive linemen. They're missing quite a bit of picks as well, though, so it's a little tricky. I like the Ravens. They got to get stuff done. They believe they can win now. Of course, they should. Lamar Jackson's getting hit back there in the pocket more, and he can't even get to the point of scrambling more than ever. It's just number one. That cannot happen because if Lamar Jackson's getting hit, getting sacked, something's real bad. It's not like a guy that's just hanging on the ball forever back there that can't move, isn't athletic, So I like Dillard. I think they'll be confident with developing further. The big problem here is you trade for this guy that's kind of a future guy. You do have Ronnie Stanley coming back next year, but there's nothing set with him. He's got a little bit of an injury concern, after he's looked at last 2 years. He very well could be the best left tackle in football if he's healthy, So to me, it makes sense there. I'm predicting the Ravens, maybe a little bold, especially with that value. We will see. A lot of people will be upset with trading away that value for a guy he hasn't been too good so far, but I don't think he's been terrible. He's got upside still. He's got that experience. But the Eagles do like him. They still value him. Marlon Mack, we've been talking about him for a bit. Been reported he's been available. Teams, they actually said that the Colts and Marlon Mack agreed to seek a trade. That was a while back. 1 year remaining, so it's a rental, but cheap, $555K remaining salary. 6th round pick, 5th round max. I think his talent says maybe around 5th, maybe better, but they agreed to seek a trade. And actually this morning, though, the Colts actually waived Jordan Wilkins, so that was interesting. Maybe because they value having a load of running backs in there. Maybe they realize they're not going to be able to trade Marlon Mack, and they could afford to move on from Wilkins. Who knows? Chiefs shown interest. We know that. The Panthers shown interest at one point. We know that. San Francisco, we know that as well, even though they're liking Elijah Mitchell now. Eagles, Miles Sanders went down. And then the Ravens. Haven't heard anything about the Ravens in on Marlon Mack. They could use a running back. I don't know if I love the fit. Maybe that's why the Ravens aren't in there. A lot of power man running schemes. Mack more of a zone runner, in my opinion, so maybe that's why. I'm going to go Chiefs. I really like the Saints for Marlon Mack, but they end up trading for Mark Ingram, which is great. So they're kind of off the table now. They're not going. I don't think they're going to trade for Mack and Ingram, because they already did Mark Ingram, and they're looking for a receiver now. So I'm going to predict the Chiefs. We know they're in. Maybe it doesn't happen if the Chiefs don't do it. Maybe the Colts keep them. Teams aren't really paying a high price for running back. Chiefs will be getting Clyde Edwards-Helaire back, and the Darrell Williams they got Jerick McKinnon. So I'm almost talking myself into maybe it doesn't happen now. But Chiefs, we know, been involved in that. And it really comes down to if Marlon Mack's because they agreed to seek a trade. And if they don't trade him, that usually teams trade those players. It makes the player unhappy, and it's not good for the locker room maybe. So if they don't, if Marlon Mack's okay, all right, I'm okay with riding it out for the rest of the year, and I'll sign somewhere else next year. Then I don't think he'll be traded. But if they fully are, the two sides are fully expected to move on, then I think he'll be traded. Really. So it's a little tricky one here. Chiefs are definitely the team to watch. Zach Cunningham, only $550K remaining this year, but some pretty big cap hits for some time moving forward. Value's tricky because I think he's more talented in a 4th round pick, but he has those pretty big cap hits in the future, so that makes it risky. And then the Texans, and he hasn't played well this year, and maybe it only feels like he fits a 3-4 defense, inside linebacker. The Texans don't view him as a fit. They said they're open to trading him, so maybe they lose some leverage. Tricky to figure out the value here. Chargers, I think he fits their defense. They have a lot of cap space. They can use somebody that can help stop the run. Football team, the question will be, does he fit that scheme? I think they would make it work. Cowboys, same thing. Rams, he fits, but can they afford him long term? They're really not a team that pays inside linebackers a whole bunch of money. So it's really the only team that really makes sense on all levels is the Chargers. But I don't think they do it, and they're focused on some other things. They'll get Kenneth Murray back as well, and they like White and Tranquil in there with them. They could get better. Chargers are they kind of separate themselves. For this one, if it's going to happen, it's probably the Chargers, in my opinion. But I don't think teams will be looking to add his contract. But, I think it's some risk based on him not playing too well this year. But I think he's a heck of a 3-4 inside linebacker, and I think he could help a team big time there. So Texans are open to trading him. I don't really agree with the Texans there. I think I think he should be playing inside in the 4-3 as well. If you're going to run a 4-3, they're choosing system over player. Cunningham's a heck of a ball player, so I don't really like what Texans are doing over there. But we'll see what happens there. Maybe a little bit bigger of a name here, even though Cunningham was probably a better linebacker in the recent past. But Miles Jack, remaining salary, a little pricey, $5.27 million. It's remaining. Value around a second round, might be a second round plus. More things here. Look at the same team, some more 4-3 teams that he fit that also they can afford him. The Browns and the Eagles have a lot of cap space available. Eagles are weird because they restructured a lot of contracts. They cleared a lot of space, and you only do that to really make moves, to spend that money. You don't just push money to the future to take those hits and just not use them. So the Eagles got to be up to something. They didn't recently restructure those deals though, so that might be a big fail. If the Eagles don't do anything by the trade deadline, they might be the biggest losers of the deadline. But it's not a team that really should be buying at the same time anyways. They should be looking for the future. So I have not agreed since the Super Bowl. I have Howie Roseman's been. We're going on an Eagles rant when we're talking about Miles Jack all of a sudden, but he's been bad since then. I don't know what happened. So Eagles, my point of bringing this up, they got to be up to something. So here's an expensive guy that they can now afford easily, and they could use a linebacker. I heard they may be willing to move on from the current linebackers because that's the negative part of that defense. So maybe. I don't think a trade. I think this is blown. I haven't heard anything about the Jaguars shopping Miles Jack or teams calling about Miles Jack. It's kind of just Twitter rumors maybe because maybe there's a little bit of unhappiness in there, and he's been out, but he's been out because of an injury. We'll see if he plays this week. I think that's kind of getting blown up more than it is. I haven't heard anything about teams calling, but it's probably happened. It probably will happen because he's a talented player. Teams need linebackers. Kyle Fuller, huge name for the trade deadline. I think he gets traded. Broncos not playing him now. Teams been calling them. Value's kind of gone down, but the Broncos have the ability to pay a portion of the salary to help some teams missing some, so because the Broncos have a lot of cap space, and they should be sellers as it is to maybe help them get a better draft pick. The value at one point was probably at second, might be a little rich. Maybe a swap picks but they get a second. Maybe it's a third value. It's dropping a little bit in terms of the value because he's been sitting. They're not playing him. Maybe he's unhappy. It's probably dropped to around a fifth. But because I think the Broncos end up paying a little bit of salary, I think it depends on which team he goes to. Maybe back up to a fourth, and the Broncos would probably rather have that. We get a fifth, and we don't pay any salary. We get a fourth, and we pay some salary when we have a lot of cap space. Oh yeah, you take that fourth round pick. Long list of teams here, probably more because this is like everybody needs corners. We've been talking about it for weeks. Everyone's losing corners or getting hurt. And the people on Twitter, what corners could my team get? They're asking me, and there's not too many available that are actually available, but we know Kyle Fuller is available, and all of those teams need corners, so it's a battle for a guy like Kyle Fuller. So I put a list of teams here. We might be able to throw some more, but some teams are too tight on cap. Do the Broncos, a team like the Colts, but do the Broncos pretty much have to pay his full salary. The Colts would have to trade like a third-round pick maybe. It's not in their best interest. This is a tough one for prediction. To me, I think it's bold that I went with the Rams. I think that's a little bold. It's hard to pick out some teams here that I want to say the main ones to watch out for. But at one point, I was leaning my prediction to be the Packers because it makes a lot of sense. At one point, I was leaning the Bills. The Bills make a lot of sense. After that, early stages, I was thinking Seattle, but Seattle started losing. They might be more sellers now, so I'm going a little colder on Seattle. Tampa continues to have injuries, but they're going to get guys back. Does he fit New England? That's kind of the question. Cincinnati might be a corner away from being an even better defense. They might be interested. I keep checking my phone because make sure no trades go down. My worst nightmare. One of these trades that I predicted right go down before the video's up. San Francisco cornerback play was atrocious versus Indianapolis. But I'm in the Vikings. Vikings, I feel like they could be up to something. The Broncos, they basically gave Weatherly the Broncos to clear a little bit of space. But I kind of backtracking a little bit here. I look at, if I had to pick three, Rams, Packers, Bills. Packers, it would be perfect because they need another corner. They have the cap space. Actually, maybe the Broncos help them out, pay $1 million, not much. They're almost looking for a rental because they want Alexander and Stokes to be the guys in the future, and Kyle Fuller would be a rental. I think he fits their scheme. They played very well against the Cardinals, though. Rasul Douglas out there, not just the interception, played a very, very, very solid. So it's a little tricky. Will the Packers do it? The Bills might be a Kyle Fuller away, from being even better. That's all they need. Maybe he's another corner. Levi Wallace been playing pretty well, though. They're not a team that doesn't. I don't know if they really feel like, yes, we're gonna go do this. We got to do this. I don't know if I can really get the feeling, but they know they could be the favorites to win the Super Bowl, so they go do something like this. I went with the Rams. I got a feeling about this. Rams are tricky because they traded Kenny Young to clear space. They got to be up to something, right? It could have been they weren't. They knew they weren't going to extend him next year because they don't like paying linebackers big money, maybe, and we'll just get something for him. But did they really get something for him? So they might be up to something. The Broncos could also pay $1 million or $2 million or maybe $3 million, probably $2 million in salary to help them out. The Rams are very thin at the cornerback position because Darius Williams is hurt. That's kind of the tough part. Darius Williams is going to come back. So then do they need Kyle Fuller? Darius Williams, remember last year at Troy Hill? Troy Hill was mainly the slot corner, but they actually flipped a bit, if you remember. They actually flipped a little bit. That was interesting. Darius Williams actually plays pretty well from the slot, and he's currently hurt. The backups are struggling a little bit. So they go, and they're a win-now team, and they could have cleared that space to get better at inside linebacker because the inside linebacker play's been bad. It is a new coach, Raheem Morris out there, so maybe they'll value linebackers. Maybe it's a pass rusher. They value playing a lot of safeties. Last year they played 3 safeties a lot at the same time or rotation. So maybe they can be going out there. I talked about in the past, Lonnie Johnson Jr. made sense for the Rams. Haven't heard much about him since then. I'm going Kyle Fuller here. I think they feel like they need another corner. They can play Darius Williams in the slot. Again, Bills, Packers, good fits. I mean, I can name all these teams. I could talk about all these teams here. It's an interesting one. I think Kyle Fuller will be traded. Like I said, Deshaun Jackson will be traded. I'm really thinking Kyle Fuller will be traded. Be interesting if it's the Rams because no one's really talking about the Rams for Kyle Fuller right now, but it's kind of a feeling I have. Got to stick with that. Kareem Jackson's been brought up. The Broncos aren't trying to trade him. Teams are calling about Kareem Jackson. I don't think it's many teams. It might just be one. It could be 2. I don't know which teams. Expiring deal. The Broncos could be sellers. Maybe that's why teams are trading. Safety play's been pretty bad in the NFL this year. It's been pretty bad. So teams could be looking to grab him. New England maybe. The Rams, like I said, they like playing, they could use another safety, like using multiple of them. 49ers got some injuries. Secondary's been struggling a little bit. Giants, Jabril Peppers goes down, so that actually made sense. I think he's somewhat similar style to Jabril Peppers. The more I'm talking right now, I'm realizing the other Giants, makes a lot of sense. Eagles got some injuries back there, could get better. I don't think a trade, though. I don't think the Broncos are desperate to move him, but he is an expiring contract. Remember, they actually, the more I'm talking, the more I'm almost changing my mind. They cut him last year, and then they brought him back for a little cheaper, if I'm not mistaken. It might be it. That might be the last rodeo here. It depends on what the Broncos do. They go in a rebuild type, not stage 1. Giants, Rams make a lot of sense. And all the teams I have listed. I'd say the Eagles are probably the least likely out of the ones I have listed. What's his value for the Broncos to let him go? Maybe they got to give up more than a 5th. My prediction is no trade just because there's credible people that say they really don't want to trade him, but they don't know every detail, I guess. They're not in on every call. I think it's pretty possible. The more I'm talking, it becomes pretty interesting. Giants really shouldn't be buyers, but I could see them being some. Losing Jabril Peppers. They got all their safeties, though. They got Logan Ryan moving around a bit. Xavier McKinney. They have Julian Love. Do they have that other? I'm starting to like the Giants a little bit. We'll see. We'll see what happens there. It depends on if they think they should be buyers or not. AJ Bouyer's name has come up. Teams calling is an interesting one. Teams calling AJ Bouye to trade for him. Only a $530K remaining salary. Is under contract next year as well. It's a tricky one because value 5th. I've heard the Panthers really they got to be really it's got to be an appealing offer for them to let him go. Back to the long list of teams that need a corner. A chunk of these teams definitely could be calling. I'm predicting no trade just because I think the Panthers will need more than his value. I don't think a team's going to offer more than a 5th unless the Panthers are paying part of his salary, which is possible because they have a good amount of cap space. So that's possible as well. If a team offers a 4th and they take it, because Gilmore's back now, So that kind of helps us a little bit. They do have C.J. Henderson. They do have Dante Jackson. And the problem is Gilmore's still a question mark. Are they going to extend him? Where's his injury at? C.J. Henderson's more of a developmental guy. Dante Jackson, they're probably not going to extend. I kind of get that feeling. J.C. Horn will be back next year. But could it be A.J. Bouye and J.C. Horn out there next year? They really don't know. And I think they like Bouye as well. So it's a player the Panthers definitely do not want to give away. They may not accept the 5th. They may not accept the 4th. They probably should. But who knows there. So it's a little tricky. Teams are pretty desperate for corners. Teams that are trying to win now. So maybe. And then Panthers, I think, my predictions could actually change slightly after, because week 8's tomorrow Sunday, week 8 games. And teams lose, like Panthers lose. If they lose to the Falcons again, it might be like, hey, we're probably not winning anything this year. Let's get the pick, It could be that. It could be the case. Let's take the 5th round pick or whatever it is. Maybe willing to do the 4th if somebody offers that, which again, and then teams that win, we're serious contenders. We're winning. Let's go get that corner that we need. They might be desperate. Let's trade that 4th. So it's a tricky one. AJ Bouye definitely is one that could be dealt. Akeem Hicks been brought up a little bit. $5.77 million remaining salary, around a 3rd round pick value. There's a few teams there, but the Chargers, I bring up the Chargers lots because they have a lot of cap space. They're trying to win now. They can use a player like this as well. And on top of that, the Chargers actually called the Bears in the offseason, maybe around the preseason range, to trade for Akeem Hicks. We talked about that in the past. So the Chargers would make sense. I don't think a trade happens. It's a little pricey. The Bears might value. They still may want to extend him. Then they want to save space for offense, though, paying for spending on offense. But they may want to extend him. The value might be too high for the team. Be like, we got to pay him $5.77 million this year. We got to extend him next year. And is he injured? He's kind of on and off of the injuries. It might just be too risky for a team. Can they match him on value? I think the Bears should trade him unless they're for sure going to extend him. I don't know if they will, though. I think they want to save money for offense. They spend on offense. They made that quite clear. So really the Chargers are the team to watch out for there. LJ Collier, I think this is a guy that will be dealt. I heard, Seahawks could be a landing spots for some of these guys, some of these players, but they could be more sellers. They're losing right now. Russell Wilson comes back to get back in the mix, though, that's for sure. Cheap remaining salary, cheap in terms of the value because he hasn't really worked out. They're not playing him a whole bunch. Interesting one because landing spots are interesting because I graded him out of TCU as a 3-4 end. Seahawks, brought him in as more of a 4-3 end. They played him inside a little bit. It looked better there. I would like him to go to a 3-4 team and play 3-4 end. It doesn't mean a 4-3 team won't trade for him and play him as an edge rusher. It does, that's very possible. In that case, I really thought of the Browns because they play a 4-3, and the Browns got some injury and injury concern at the defensive end position. They're playing great out there, but they don't have a whole lot of depth. And they like developing. They think they can develop guys. They're confident with that. And here's a guy with some upside still. So the Browns made sense to me for a 4-3 team. They might go a little bigger. We'll talk about that in a little bit, slightly bigger. Some 3-4 teams there that I would like. The Chiefs are just desperate, but they already got these maybe guys. Will they be good? I don't know if they're right for Collier. I like the Steelers, and it's probably bold of me. I just really like the fit. It's probably bold, though, because they're missing a lot of picks there on day 3. They could use a future one, a future pick, I should say, 7th, 6th, whatever it is. I just really like the fits. The 5-2, it's their 3-4 end. It's a hell of a ball player. He's been hurt. It's kind of been a setback as well. When is he going to come back? They don't really have much there in that specific, spot. A guy that fits that role. I think LJ Collier fits that. Like I said, I like him as a 3-4 end. I think with Mike Tomlin and company coaching him, I think he could be something. I think they could be looking out for the future there as well. Tua's got great players, got injury concern. So I'm really feeling the Steelers. Haven't heard anything like that. Like I said, if a 4-3 team wants him, I look out for the Browns. We'll see if the Steelers pull this off, though. I really like the fit for them. But speaking of the Browns, I got the Browns getting Cleveland Farrell. I'd say between LJ Collier and Cleveland Farrell, I'd watch out for the Browns. I haven't heard the Browns I haven't heard anything from anybody about them looking for edge rusher. But I think it makes sense to me because they got 3 guys. They got Myles Garrett, they got Jadeveon Clowney, they got Tack McKinley. They're all balling. There's some little bit of injuries that pop up there. Guys got injury concern. They really don't have any depth after that, and they're really good at developing these guys. They're confident with that. I think Cleveland Farrell's a great fit. I think it's a great fit. I think that can help him out a lot. Use him as rotation. 6th round pick, maybe 5th max, because he does have a lot of upside still. You just look at the kind of the Jacksonville's interesting because they're running a little bit of a hybrid defense. So do they view them as a fit? It's questionable. Other teams, Miami had this a little bit of similar things. They give different looks. Minnesota's doing well at getting after the quarterback, but Everson Griffin is going to be with them next year. And I think Clelin Ferrell's a really good fit. They're very good at developing guys like this. So that's why they're up there. Seattle, are they buyers? Are they sellers? It's going to be the Collier replacement there. They may like Ferrell a little better. I like the Browns. The Browns make sense to me. I don't like Ferrell going to a 3-4 team. That doesn't make sense to me. I like him as a 4-3 end. The Chiefs would be on here. I don't think the Raiders trade the division rival there. I don't think they help out the Chiefs. They would definitely be on here, though. I look out for the Browns. Between LJ Collier, Clelin Ferrell, predicting Ferrell, but look out for those guys for the Browns. Be pretty damn interesting. I would like him there. Andrew Billings, speaking of the Browns, $750K remaining salary. It's a nose tackle. True early down nose tackle. Not going to get any pass rush. He's going to play first downs pretty much. Short yardage as well. Goal line. Value is pretty cheap. Could be a swap of picks. The Browns don't use them. They don't really like having those run-down guys. I mean, they believe their interior guys that get after the quarterback can help stop the run as it is. But Billings can stop the run at a pretty high level, actually. But that's really all he is. 7th-round pick. Cardinals, it's not a J.J. Watt replacement because J.J. Watt's a 3-4 end. It's a nose tackle. But the one thing the Cardinals need to do better is stop the run. So I'd look out for the Cardinals, help get a nose tackle in there. I like them a lot. Tennessee, probably less likely on this list. They could use a early down nose tackle, perhaps. The Rams, probably with their Tennessee, maybe not as likely, but I think they could benefit from adding another nose tackle. They kind of stick with the kind of the developmental guys. San Francisco, and then the Cowboys. Cowboys could be getting some guys back from injury. I really look at the Cardinals, and I look at the 49ers. 2 NFC West teams. I'd keep an eye on those 2 teams. I'm actually pretty oddly confident with one of those teams landing them. I'm going to predict the 49ers. They're very beat up. They need somebody else on the inside there to help stop the run. So I'm going to predict the 49ers. Cardinals do make sense, though. They do make sense, but yeah, teams looking for that. I keep getting these notifications. I'm just worried it's going to be a trade. Nothing. Tyrann Mathieu apologizing for ripping the fans a little bit. That's the notification I got. So watch out for Billings. Browns aren't using them. Cheap cost. Teams want to stop the run better. I'm going to go 49ers. I like the Cardinals. I like the Cardinals as well. Kamoko Turay, team's calling about him. Team's actually calling about his teammate, Ben Banogu there, a couple years ago, drafted out of TCU. Turay and Banogu, I don't think are fits. I was questioning the Colts when they drafted them both. I didn't really, because they're more of a 4-3 defense. I think these guys are 3-4 outside linebacker pass rush, so they try to convert them a little bit. Turay could play both. That's why a lot of teams are listed, because Turay could fit both. And he's actually talented, and he has upside, but he has injury concern. And now the Colts just aren't playing him really at all. Their rookie, Deo Odengbo, who I like, they actually activated him off the NFI list. It doesn't really mean he's going to be back for sure or back anytime soon, or he could be. But that's a sign as well. They have Kwity Paye in there. They got Rochelle now as well. They got in the offseason. And they got Mohammed. They got other guys that we know about that play. So they're playing Turay less. He has injury concern. Teams are calling. I would like him better in a 3-4. I want to bull with this one too, because the Bears should be sellers, but they're beat up at the position right now, and they don't have a lot of depth. Khalil Mack probably going to go on maybe will go on the IR. We'll see. And this is a guy that could probably help him for the future as well. I think he should be on a 3-4 team. I think he'd be good on the Bears, but there's a long list of teams. This is one that, a low percentage of being right, because there's the Colts got to want to trade him, which I think they may be willing. The Steelers could be moving on from Ingram. We'll talk about him probably at the end of this video. And they tried to get Whitney Merciless. I think they tried to get Whitney Merciless before the Packers got him, because they knew they were going to trade Ingram and they need a depth guy. So for the Steelers, Turay would make some sense. The Chargers could use another guy. The Falcons, he would fit their defense. I thought about the Chiefs, because the Chiefs are just so desperate for some help. So I really thought about the Chiefs. We talked about the Browns could be in on some of these guys. I like the Bears. The Bears, they're going to need somebody. They're going to need somebody because they're a little beat up. I like the fit there. I think they can turn Turay into something here, but he's got to stay healthy. That's kind of the thing. So I went a little bold, and a team that probably should be sellers, I went as a buyer here. 6th-round pick, maybe. We'll see what happens there. And then his teammate Banogu, like I said, could be dealt as well, but won't be too appealing. It might be a team trades for him, and he might not even play. It's kind of an upside. It's been a little disappointing, TURAY actually can play if he's on the field. Marcus May's been talked about, pretty expensive in terms of the remaining salary, and it's an expiring deal, 5.895. Third round value, I'd say. It's tricky to value because last year he probably played like a second round value. This year, not so much. And then he's a rental. Where do you match up in the value? Bucks, Rams, football team, Eagles, Jags, what I got up there. Mainly looking at the two contenders at the top, Buccaneers and the Rams. They could benefit from adding another safety. I don't think a trade because he's pretty expensive. The Jets could pay part of the salary, though, and help that team out. It's definitely possible, and that would make it more likely, but things need to happen here. But matching on the value and still being pretty pricey, and then you got to extend him. Does he fit every defense? He fit last year's Jets defense a lot more than this year. It's a little tricky. I keep hearing the Bucks and the Rams could be in there, though. I just think a lot has to happen, but it's definitely a big name to watch out for. Xavier Howard's been brought up, but I don't even know if anybody's calling on him. I know the Dolphins really aren't trying to push him out. It's just kind of a big name that's being brought up. First round pick value doesn't really mean it has to be a first round pick. It could be multiple twos, 3 or 4 in there as well. Maybe that's more likely. It's just the value is equal to a first. Look at the Titans. They've been on the search for franchise corner. The Vikings the same. Cincinnati been brought up. The Steelers, a little iffy on the Steelers. I don't know if they value the cornerback position that high because the pass rush makes the corners' jobs easier for them. It makes sense. Chargers. I'm mainly looking at the first 3: Titans, Vikings, Bengals. Titans, Vikings, Bengals. Yeah, but I don't think a trade happens. I don't know if the Dolphins really want to trade him. It might have to be like a first and some for them to trade him, possibly. Who knows? He's been brought up quite a bit. Could happen. I would focus on the first 3 teams. A little risky trading for him at the same time. Melvin Ingram here is the last one finally. And more guys could pop up. We talk about. There's a lot of small under the radar guys. Melvin Ingram, interesting one. $597K remaining salary, not much. Value, 5th round pick, somewhere around there. Long list of teams that could use a pass rusher. I think he's pretty versatile. He fits any scheme. And it sounds like he wants out because his playing time has been decreased. He's actually inactive for this week. Is that because of the groin injury? I think it's more toward because they're going to trade him because he wants out. I think it's more because of that. The Steelers beat the Chiefs for him as a free agent. The Chiefs wanted him. The Steelers beat them to him. Well, they're not. Chiefs might have been there first actually, but and the Cardinals been brought up. Yeah, somebody brought up that the Steelers prefer not to trade him, maybe to a Chiefs, the AFC team. Maybe the Cardinals are an option. Cardinals, he's versatile enough to kind of play a J.J. Watt role, sort of, but not start there. And it's only a handful of snaps a game. In their system, he's more of an outside linebacker, which is Chandler Jones, Marcus Golden. They have a number of guys. Gardeck, they got a number of guys there. But he's versatile enough to help them out, and they're trying to win a Super Bowl. They can use anything there. The Bears, like I said, they're thin at pass rush right now. Khalil Mack hurt. They could be in on a guy like this. And they would want more of a guy for the future, a cheaper option for the future as well. We talked about TURAY, maybe, or Banogu, maybe a guy like guys like that going to the Bears. One of the Colts guys going to the Bears possibly. Falcons could definitely use a pass rusher. They're pretty healthy, but Fowler's on IR, and they need more pass rush help as it is. Seahawks could use some help. Rams are one that would look out here. Vikings, maybe a little less likely. Giants, probably less likely. I like the Chiefs, the Cardinals, just because the Cardinals have been mentioned by a credible source. Chiefs, Cardinals, and Rams, I'd say. I'd look out for those teams for sure. But I still want the Chiefs, even though it said the Steelers don't really – that's bold to me. Steelers don't really want to trade him to an AFC team. I know the Chiefs, they like him though. They want him. They need the help. They want a veteran guy in there. Will the Steelers even get offers from the NFC teams? Will it be, because Steelers don't want to trade him to the Chiefs. We want to trade it to you guys over there. They'll probably offer like a 7th round pick, maybe a 6 max. Are the Steelers really going to turn? I think the Chiefs will be willing to offer a 5th. Maybe they offer a 4th. Maybe a 4th, and maybe they want to pick back a later pick in the future. Do you turn down the better value from the Chiefs, the team that definitely wants him? I don't think they should. Melvin Ingram is a great player. I used to be a huge Melvin Ingram fan because he can still do it because he makes everyone else better around him. Everyone else around him better. So I still like him. I liked him a lot more in his prime. But my point is he gonna make the Chiefs? Is he gonna be Steelers thinking we're gonna lose the Chiefs in the playoffs because they got Melvin Ingram. I don't know. I don't know. So they should take the better value there. So I'm still predicting Chiefs. Maybe a little bold there because it does sound like they want to trade him to an NFC team. There's other small name guys we talked about in the past. We'll talk about more. Anything that pops up, we'll talk about it on Twitter. Always talking live or breaking the news, breaking down things. We'll probably grade the trades in one video together, all the things that happen. But trades will happen. There's a lot of people that are like, no trades will happen. They never happen. They do, but not that many. And there's people that are probably confused on how I predicted 90% of these guys not to be traded because not all the guys will be traded. Not everyone's going to agree on things. But people think the trades didn't happen so far, so they're not going to happen. But teams wait until the Monday or Tuesday, maybe Sunday after the game because that knocks off a week of their salary, the player's salary, and they save space. Everybody is tight on cap besides the obvious few there. So trades will happen, and there's some that were pretty obvious about. Deshaun Jackson, Kyle Fuller, Melvin Ingram, players like that. So we'll see. Should be fun. Again, you're definitely going to want to follow our Twitter for these updates. It's possibly making a last-second video if things change or more big-time candidates pop up there. So subscribe, turn notifications on so you don't miss any of that. We have full NFL coverage, weekly picks, score predictions, power rankings, rookie power rankings. Mid-season, we'll have my player rankings, predict the playoffs. We got all that. We got everything. So join us. Be much appreciated. That is going to do it for this one. Thanks, everyone, for watching. Goodbye.